All right, we are back here on the podcast talking the return of Curb Your Enthusiasm today. Joining me on the line to break down the season 12 premiere of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Martino Puccio is back with us. Martino, how are you?
Good, good. Having as good of a Sunday as you can. I feels like every single time I watch Curb now, it's not only just to laugh, it's to get some stress relief from the Jets. Honestly, then again, I don't even get that stressed out about the Jets anymore. I come to expect it. It's just a regular old week, I guess. But I mean, I'm so happy to finally see it back. And the best, one of the silver linings in COVID too, I guess you could say, is how quickly it sneaks up on you with the premiere for
Yeah.
it. So I'm so happy it's back and it came out with a bang.
Yeah, first of all, in reference to the Jets, I played this earlier in the podcast, but this is again very relevant. They stink. Don't need to say more than that.
No, no, I have nothing else to add.
Yeah. And the Curb thing, I was very pleasantly surprised we got it so quick because I know they announced after season 11 wrapped up last year they picked up for 12. I'm like, oh, COVID, it'll take them a while. But I was expecting 2023 at the early. I was expecting January, so I was surprised you got it this early.
Yeah, no, exactly. Then again, I guess he just has more time on his hands right now, so it was a great surprise to get it out so quickly. And they really didn't even skip a beat, in my opinion.
No, and before we dive deeper in here, I'm going to play the good old fashioned spoiler warning. Okay, if you have not watched the season 12 premiere of Curb Your Enthusiasm, get the hell out of this podcast if you don't want to be spoiled. So go watch the show, then come back and talk to us. And I have to say, I'm glad they did in the post-COVID world, but they had so many callbacks to things. It was so funny, a lot of good moments. I think this was very well done, and they did a good job tying together a lot of very different threads in the episode.
Yeah, just and right off the start too. The best part was the cameos. I
Yeah.
thought that caught you by surprise because he mentions Lucy Liu in it. And you know what was also interesting too? That I mean, obviously, well, it's going to be one of the topics. So I don't think I should mention it just yet. So I'll wait on that. I'll wait on that.
No, if
But yeah,
you have a, we can bounce around. Curb bounce around. So what are you thinking?
okay. Well, I found it fascinating that a show, because we see it happen so many times, and you know how kind of like shows like kind of bounce around and talk about other companies or networks, but they
Yeah,
don't say their name. They went right ahead with like Netflix. They went right ahead with other like streaming services. Amazon Prime was referenced by Albert Brooks too. In one of the moments where he's telling Leon to watch one of his movies. I don't know. I just found something interesting like that because, you see a lot of shows like Silicon Valley. I don't know if you ever watched Silicon Valley. It's another HBO show. They basically make fun of Google and Apple in it.
yeah.
But they never say the names of the companies. So I just found it interesting. That was like one thing, but that's obviously separate from the show itself.
Yeah, I think it's actually fun. Also funny because HBO has its own streaming service, HBO Max. You would wonder if, like, for standards, they wouldn't want them to go there. But Larry said, no, it's funny with Netflix. I'm sure they said, Larry, whatever you want, we'll do. And Netflix, I'm sure, was thrilled to get themselves, like, free advertising in that show.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the best part is that they're just able to push their other stuff and kind of keeping true to what HBO used to be about, which was not giving a shit and just doing and saying whatever they want. And it kind of broke the mold of stuff like they don't care if they had like product placement and all that other stuff in their shows. So yeah, it was just awesome. And like literally I was kind of timid. I was a little like worried, when a lot of shows in general go deeper into seasons, they kind of run out of ideas, they kind of get stale. But just the sheer instance of Susie plopping down, like that's another example of like a social thing that happens that you think of it and you know about it, but you never kind of like bring it up or reference it. Like he has an endless trick of bags that he could bring up and put into a situational comedy that is Curb. And that's another like tiny thing that was funny, but another example of why that show is so great.
Yeah, for sure. I want to start at the top of the show here. I mean, we start with Larry wake up in the middle of the night. He realizes his house is being robbed. We find out the robber ends up dying because the robber trips, hits their head, and drowns in the pool. And then we have the point of the episode, I think, to be a big through line for the whole season. This whole fact that Larry's supposed to have a 5-foot-high fence around his pool, of course, Santa Monica regulations. Did not have as he bought the house, and now this burglar's death going to be what sounds like could be the ruination of his Netflix show. I think that whole tie-in is so funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Another. This is basically this season's Mocha Joe, right? At this point, it's just just an overlying plot. You already saw it impact at the end of the episode, as well when he was with Albert Brooks. I think again, just so funny how he puts himself into these situational comedy issues where I think it's actually going to kind of work out for Lair because he's just going to put it is extortion. He's being extorted, and the whole spin, and this is why I love it too, because I always used to agree with Larry. A lot of people agree with Larry, even the Fatwa situation was a couple seasons ago, and slowly you see a lot of the other characters around Larry admit that they do agree with him, but a lot of people have trouble speaking up immediately about it. When Jeff is like, Susie plop down, absolutely. Same thing with Albert. She plop, I'm on the plop side. Now they're kind of going to be on the same side of Larry, in which it's yeah, they'll be against him because they think he's a bad guy. But listen, he's being extorted. The guy who drowned in his house was trying to steal from him. So that's another thing too, right? First of all, why is Larry the bad guy in this? Just because he didn't have a regulation? The guy wouldn't have drowned in the first place if he didn't try breaking and entering and trying to rob Larry. Yeah. So there's so many different ways that you could look at it and spin it that could be in Larry's favor. But again, it is curved. That's kind of the direction that they always go in. So yeah.
Yeah, I always thought about that. I'm like, why is Larry let himself get extorted there? Because they could just say he's trying to rob my house. Why are you going to sue me on this? And then he is sort of caged very quickly and lets Maria Sophia, the niece of the burglar, audition and basically win the role of his Netflix show of his aunt he was auditioning for. She was auditioning for? I think she's supposed to be a family member that's helping out the uncle, but trying to slowly find ways to kill him. I forgot if there was the actual name of the show, but basically the premise is that she was auditioning for one of the main characters of his Netflix show. Yeah, and the audition is how bad she was. She couldn't pronounce anything. All her dialects are off.
Didn't understand the emotions of the character and the gravity of the scene. She was just it was awkward. She kind of wasn't playing a character. She was kind of playing herself in certain instances of it. So. Yeah,
I love at the end of that. Where the episode ends up ending is that the execs at Netflix are horrified with her audition. Larry's like, "Great, we found our Marsha."
But that's why it's pure Larry, because most people would have been like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do this. I don't want to ruin the show. I got to think of others. I got to be considerate." He literally sits there and is like, "Nah, screw him. I got to worry about this possible extortion thing. I'd rather just get that out of the way." When in reality, the way the show usually goes is that it all blows up in his face. So,
yeah, I'm curious to see this blows up his face in a good way, when he was on the producers in season 4, when we find out that Mel Brooks cast him to tank the show and he ends up saving it, or if this is more like the Mocha Joe thing where the Spice store blows up in his face.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I think the Netflix show absolutely blows up in his face. As far as extortion, having to pay money and stuff, I don't know. I don't think so. If anything, he'll just pay a fine, I think, because what are they actually going to do to him? Because the brother is trying to extort him. Yeah, he was also trying to be robbed. The cop gave him an out. Yeah, he's clearly got proof and evidence of blackmail leading to the address of the taco spot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's so many things working in Larry's favor that I don't think it's going to be that bad,
Yeah, I have to think at some point also, my prediction here is that she's so bad, he ends up firing her and ends up trying to take on the blackmail anyway. That's what I think is going to end up happening with that.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be wrong, because at the end of the day, you could test anything. Kind of perfect example when he saw John Hamm. Yeah, we tested the Larry David, it just didn't launch. Things like that in Hollywood don't launch. There's stuff that happens. And the funny thing is that she is so terrible that show will probably never air just because of how bad she is. Forget about, whatever Larry's situation is.
Yeah. Let's talk some of the other plots of the episode here. I want to go to the Albert Brooks stuff because the live funeral thing is so stupid, so funny that I love that we get the live funeral at the end of the episode that Larry basically just takes an opportunity to roast Albert Brooks and just basically says, hey, he's alive, in about 15 different ways, making fun of him. And it's like, and Albert Brooks out there like, I hate that man. I was just laughing so hard.
No, yeah, that's the best part though, because they all say they hate Larry, but they can't help being around him or having him come over. Same thing with like Susie, and just like Jeff gets him. He's his manager and everything. He loves him. He's totally always on his side, but he rarely ever speaks up due to his marriage. Yeah. But again, I found it hilarious because he knows like this is why Larry is so different from all other celebrities, and is that, well, his character in the show at least, is that he knows it's so ridiculous. Yeah. How self-absolved and conceited could Albert Brooks, this version of Albert Brooks, could be, is that he wants to sit upstairs in his room while people talk about how glorious his career and what a great person he is. You know what I mean? Like, that's such a self-indulged thing that, Larry should make fun of it. Larry should be sitting there, and then I like the fact that the closet, I guess I'll just jump to it, like that exposes someone else. Yeah. And it's not just Larry that gets the bad rep at the end of it. Like Larry comes out looking great from the funeral.
Oh, he does.
The glass situation as well with Leon, the hoarding, just all of that stuff. Even the jokes were great. So I found it awesome. And it was really funny. And the best part was probably Albert Brooks at the end of it. He's like, we'll try again next year. Like he doesn't give a damn. Like if it didn't work, it didn't work. We'll go back and do it again. That's just like, carefree kind of attitude.
Yeah. We get to the COVID hoarder stuff, but I do also want to point out that John Hamm's has like such deep hearted, like serious funeral, like eulogy style remarks about Albert are also very funny.
Which kind of plays into the version of John Hamm that we saw last season when he was just trying to be method acting. Yeah. When he goes all in, John Hamm is going to go all in. If John Hamm has to give a speech at Shiva, at a Jewish funeral, he's going to go learn Hebrew words and try and understand the context of it, which is just so funny because like, she's like, no, you don't want to use it. Like, no, don't use that. Use this word. It was just... it was so good, and I'm really happy that they got someone like John Hamm back in. I gotta say, like it's just awesome. A recurring character that's such an iconic TV actor of all time. Like it's again, they hit the nail on the head with it.
Yeah, and anyway, that plot ends where Larry ends up trying to find the bathroom there, and then he stumbles onto a closet Albert has with all of like the Purell toilet paper, like PP you could possibly be looking for in there, and then everyone flips out and says, like, what the hell is wrong with you COVID hoarder, which I think we all know the COVID hoarders.
Yeah. Which was kind of more about the stuff from the beginning of the pandemic when people were panicking, for lack of a better word, where everyone was going into stores, grabbing as many paper towels as possible, like cleaning products, etc. And obviously the Purell that we saw, tissues as well. It was really funny. That the only quarrel I kind of had with that is like, okay, what kind of timeline are we within the pandemic? Because I haven't heard about hoarding stuff in over a year, right? Because that's basically what it was at the start of last spring. Now it's kind of like a side thing, but either way, like if they're able to bring it up and they put it in a good situation, I thought it was hilarious. For me, when I saw it, I wasn't like, oh my god, like Albert, you know what I mean? Like I didn't feel as strongly as they did about it, but the way they pull it off is obviously so funny that you laugh either way.
I also laughed at Albert's throwing line that he has flu shots.
Yeah, man, that's so good.
Yeah.
And he said he used to be this place used to be a CVS. I moved in here. Yeah. Just taking Larry's line, like I just moved in here. I didn't know about the fence kind of thing, which is just it's all hilarious.
And before we move on from this storyline here, what would you do if somebody approached you and said, "I'm going to have a live funeral. I want you to be there"?
Honestly, I would consider. It depends on the person, but I'd consider going. Because it's just like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, I just have to see it because it's just such a ridiculous thing, and because I'm just like, like I don't know, I'm supposed to like feel emotional about it. Like Larry put it in the speech. It's like, like everyone's gonna be so devastated to see you in an hour. It's It's so I don't know. I see. I would probably go to it just because it's like so different. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
It's like for me, I probably go and then see how ridiculous it is, then probably like mention it on my podcast. I'm like, oh, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And just go on about that.
Because, more publicity. Yeah.
Because if you're having a live funeral, you want the attention. So I don't think you'll care if I'm dunking on you on my podcast about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, man, like, but you're also asking for it when people are there to like show up and it's just so ridiculous. That's such a Hollywood thing. But again.
Yeah, look at the other storylines here. The plot of the $6,000 that Larry is owed by Dennis Zybel, who is one of his buddies, and apparently they went on a golf trip. He owed $6,000 6 months ago, never got paid. And then they said, "Oh, you can't ask Dennis. Dennis has dementia." So Larry's like, "Great, I gotta go ask him before he forgets again." I thought that made me laugh.
That was the by far, and I'm not exaggerating this, probably the funniest line in many. That's probably a top 10 line all time in the show.
Yeah.
Like, no, not even joking. Like, that's hysterical.
Yeah. I was dying when he started that situation there. And we find out pretty quick that Dennis is a really a douche.
He is, because you know what it is too, because first of all, this is a perfect thing that I was referring to earlier with the fatwa stuff and people just kind of like, oh, like how like Larry's wrong, when even like us as the viewers, like, no, Larry's right. Everything he's kind of doing and saying, like, where he gets to in the end, he's correct. But the way he gets there, we don't agree with the way Larry does it, right? Because he puts himself in that spot. Like Zybel's like kind of like, oh, what are you, stalking me? No, you jerk. He just walked out of a store and you so happen to be there. So he walks down to go say hello to you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, too, it's like, we're not talking about $100 here. We're not talking about 50. We're talking about 6 G's, $6,000, 6 large that you owe somebody. Yeah, and it turns out like the guy owns the jewelry store at the end where Susie shows up, that I'm sure you'll reference. Yeah. Like, you don't have $6,000. Like, what? Then why are you going on a trip like that? Jeff paid him, everyone else paid him, except Zybel. Like, to me, guy's an ass for that. Like, just pay your friend. It doesn't matter who it is at that point. $6,000.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, and I love how he's trying to use his dementia as a shield for not getting away with it, for getting with everything. And like we saw, you mentioned with Susie, when one episode where Larry breaks one of Susie's brooches, and then she brings it to get fixed because Zybel apparently gave her a lifetime guarantee. He tried to like talk to me. I was like, I don't remember giving you a guarantee. I don't do that. And then Susie just grabs him by the throat, basically. Says, "You're gonna fix this, and you're gonna
expletives."
So you're gonna fix this. You're gonna fix this for effing free, and I'm gonna be back here on Friday. And then
the best part is too, like, even with the payment back with Zybel to Larry, 6 months, Mike. 6 months he waited.
Yeah,
it's not like he waited 2 weeks for $6,000. Okay, like, dude, half a year.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And Susie, that's also just like another layer of what her character is like, even if she does agree with Larry, which she did, she will go leaps and bounds just to not be on his side, not to give him the satisfaction of, you're right, Larry. Yeah. Like, that's not, like, she'll never do it.
Yeah. And I have to say, from what we've seen so far, like, and going through the history of Curb, I think Dennis Zybel might be one of the 10 worst people on the show in terms of like how much of a douche he is.
Aggravating. Yeah. He's up there for sure with the aggravation.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's definitely like other guys that I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's certainly up there. We're just kind of, even when certain scenes with the Funk Man, like, crack me up, where he's just being so ridiculous. And childish. Was a couple good things with like Susie too. Even with Richard Lewis can be such an ass, even though he's an incredibly shallow person. Yeah. So yeah,
it's a lot different than, like, I know this show likes to like have people with disabilities or conditions sort of become assholes. Like, I've never seen, like, remember the blind pianist back in like season 1 and season 4? Like he was not as much of a douche as this guy was.
No. Yeah. And the thing is, like, the specific keywords that should be noted are early onset dementia. It's not fully bloomed and kicked in. And the funny thing is, like, you notice too, it's kind of like a subtle hint on the culture where they're at the golf range and Larry rightfully yelling at him for calling him out, saying like, you never paid me. Again, another thing that frustrates me so much, just show the bank statement. No check was cashed. Just do that. It ends the thing fast. But that's just me being anal about it. But the thing with the societal, background to the culture of these days is like everyone's backing up and just defending the guy just because he does have dementia. They're not like looking at it from an objective perspective where it's, hey, this guy is being an ass who owes $6,000 and hasn't paid him back over 6 months, but we're giving him an out. And Larry was saying it perfectly, like, oh, like you're going to give this guy a pass? Like, I'm not the bad guy here. Like, just because he has dementia doesn't mean it's okay to steal. is what he said. It's like, but he's right. But he's so right. That's it. He is stealing. So yeah.
Yeah, he's stealing. He figured out he could just hide behind his dementia and not have to pay again. Just claim I paid you. You don't remember?
No, that's such a great. And the funnier part is where they're kind of messing with Larry because he does have good points that he raises. Where walking into the glass door, you know what? Like, honestly, I don't think that's an age thing. That's not an old person thing. I've seen plenty of people walk into stuff they shouldn't walk into in life, right? And they're not even close to what Larry's age is. And then also just, like subtly forgetting that he might have or might not have complimented people, like the two guys he didn't compliment. But also at the same time, it's just really about Larry is a nice and complimentary guy at first, but he's not that complimentary as he'd like to think, because he's like, he definitely has complimented people. We've seen it. He's been nice. Like even the flamboyant kid way back when he was in New York, when he gives him the sewing kit, everything he sews the swastika. There's a classic episode if no one's seen that. No spoiler alert, but yeah, like stuff like that. And he kind of like forgets. He's like, oh, I thought I did. But that's like kind of like, is that his age or like, is he just wrong? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I also think Larry's age is a big part of that too. They made fun of Larry being old quite a bit. I mean, we started with he's dating Lucy Liu, and then they go to this dinner party. We have the plop, which I think is the big thing that came out of this episode, was Larry sitting on the couch with wine. Susie plops on the couch and causes Larry to spill the wine. She says, Larry, you're old and you're weak. You spilled the wine. And he's like, you plopped. Like, and she 100% plopped. Everybody admits it except for Susie.
This is so Seinfeld. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, totally situational. They come up with their own phrase for it. She plopped, like she, and it's true though, because there's two things in this, a couple of things, right? Because I like actually doing this because I think there's rights and wrongs to this. It's social norms, right?
Yeah.
You are drinking red wine. No matter where you are, you have to be careful, especially if you are sitting on a couch or any type of furniture. You also have to be mindful and considerate if you are a person that is also not drinking that. You just don't plop down. Like, just sit down normally. What are you like sitting down like that for when you know someone has wine in their hand? And you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just you being unattentive to the situation, like the person, in this case, Susie. And it's just like, it's not Larry's fault. Like, what more do you want him to do? Do you want him to cup his hand over the top of the glass while you're about to sit down? Like, what is Larry supposed to do in that situation? That's what I like to know. And that's why also, like, Susie, total ass for not offering to pay half.
Yeah.
At least for it.
Yeah, because I could see the argument with Larry thinking, I am holding the glass. I'm gonna have to pay something here, but you should pay something too because your action caused the wine to bounce out of my glass and onto the couch.
Yep. And again, that's just like the whole back and forth argument that they had, and then it led into the walking into the glass.
Yeah. And you get that when we get the walking into the glass moment too, where Larry David walks into a glass door and they're going outside dinner at Leon's girlfriend's house, and then this point on, Lucy loses all sexual interest in Larry David, just views him as like a meek old man. That was such a funny through line for the rest of the episode.
It was, because he's like test me, I want to be tested. Like that too was just so funny when he was just like getting angry about it, because he's like, he can't like, not that he can't handle it, but like it's probably just like an annoying thing, because in between the ears in his mind, he's right. Yeah. But he is right, because he's not old like that. He's nimble, he's moving around enough, and she thought at one moment that he was, and just because he walked into a wall, maybe like old person thing to an extent, but like it's funny because it's just like if you're Larry, and it's so funny how he has a short-term memory in terms of just getting over things. Like he could have been there, like, oh, Mary walked into the glass door too, and that was like right after you left the funeral service thing. So yeah.
Yeah. And then that was the great follow-up, too, that we have Leon's girlfriend, Mary Ferguson, walk into the glass door. Leon loses all interest in her sexually. And then he decides that because he and Mary were planning to go on a trip in 6 months, instead of trying, and the ticket's not refundable, he decided he's going to...
But the key thing is Asia.
Yeah. To Asia.
It's the whole continent, not a specific country.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going around that whole bitch. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And then we have the brilliant cutting back at 14, Larry auditioning the actresses for his Netflix show, with Leon auditioning new Mary Ferguson. So he apparently finds 10 different Mary Fergusons in Santa Monica to audition to go with him on the trip to Asia. That was such a funny sequence.
Because again, it's another thing where Leon gets the woman that he wants and Larry's stuck there with a girl that he doesn't want.
Yeah.
That's another one of those themes, and that's why they have such a great dynamic. I found like the interviews that Leon was doing was hilarious.
Yes, he was.
Every single question that he ended up asking them. And then Larry too was just like, oh my God, he's actually gonna just go through with this and give her the role on the show. I just it's just insane. It's so cringe too, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh come on, man, don't do that. She's gonna get it. It's just, I don't know, that it's cringe to me in a way, but again, that's the shows like that.
Yeah, I mean, Larry's Netflix auditions, I think that worked out too, is they put in several actresses who actually were good and doing good auditions, and they Netflix execs were like, oh, you're great, this is awesome. And Larry's like, eh.
But again, that just shows the actual business in itself. It's it's another case of who you know, but in this case, it's not one of those good who you know nepotism things. It's extortion.
Yeah.
But it's, so many talented people get passed up because of stuff like that. But that's also what a great thing about Curb is that it actually gives a lot of opportunity. The show itself, this is just if you're a fan of the show, how many actors and actresses have we seen on the show that we've seen in stuff later on? It's oh, that person's in Curbed. We've seen them before, right? Seinfeld did that as well, where they go find new, Bryan Cranston was in Seinfeld. There were some other people that were in there as well. That obviously this is a sidetrack kind of thing, but it's, I don't know. I noticed stuff like that. Larry's a genius, he doesn't, everything is thought out.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that's oh, we'll do this. This is situational comedy. It'll be really funny. Half-assed jokes. This is well thought out with every single thing they do. This is the best comedic sitcom writer to ever live. He knows what he's doing here,
Yeah. I think that's great. And I also am curious, we're going to see the new Mary Roberts stick around for more episodes of Leon. I think it'll be fun to have her be a recurring character.
You can tell already how much of the same wavelength they're on.
Yeah.
Especially with some of her comments about that she never dated a Clipper, which obviously let Leon's eyes pop up and glow. That was just such a great line where he's like, oh, hey now, it's not that serious of a girl, but it's just, I love Leon and just the way he works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think also I'm looking at some of the guest stars that are confirmed for season 11. My mistake, I said 12 at the top of the show. It's 11. I think he said he might do one more beyond that. But we've already seen Albert Brooks. Julie Bowen's going to be on the season. Kaylee Cuoco, Bill Hader. We have Woody Harrelson showing up at some point. Patton Oswalt, Tracy Ullman. Ted Danson's back at some point. So it's Richard Lewis. And then we have Seth Rogen showing up in a fictional role at some point too. So that's also fun.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, I mean, we had Nick Kroll in a fictional role last season, I believe, right? He was the host.
He's a restaurant manager.
The Italian restaurant. Yeah, so funny. I didn't know all those names until you just mentioned them, so that's really cool to hear and see those. Wasn't I felt like Patton Oswalt was on the show at one point? Was he not?
I think he might have been playing. Yeah, I think he might have played himself before. So he might be back again as himself.
A long time ago, not any
recently.
I don't know. But then again, I I'm one of those people. I haven't gone back to watch all the Curbs. Like if someone puts it on, like if I'm at a friend's place and they're playing it, I don't go back and rewatch this. I haven't, because I'm just one of those people that's like, I don't want to go back and rewatch a show that's not done. Like the only time I ever did that was Game of Thrones. But yeah, I wait for like a show to finish like that. And again, if LD is going to go with the 12, which would be amazing. I mean, 11 is more than enough at this point, in my opinion. Just the fact that he even came back for a couple more is great. I'm looking forward to that. For me, again, the Ted Danson stuff, I need more of it. I need more of it because I think Ted is a scum. I think he's a scumbag for what he did. Yeah. I'll be straight up and honest with you. I just don't think you do that.
Yeah, I did check. Pat Wells has not been on Curbs yet, so this is a first for him.
Okay. I don't know why I thought he might have been on that, but yeah, so he's really, really underrated, I think.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see where this Netflix show goes to, because I feel like this is a great spot where you can just bring in like random Hollywood people and have them like be characters in the Netflix show. Like that's such a fun thing. Have them play like opposite Mary Sophia, just how awful she is. That's gonna lead to some awesome like comedy sequences.
I mean, we already started off with Albert Brooks' girlfriend too, in the car. He's like, "Oh yeah, she gets the Jews mixed up." Like that's like, it's just a great line. You know, it's like another good thing too. I gotta say, at the end of it, I think that was Larry as the conductor.
Yeah,
walking up. Did you think that too? Because it looked like his fatwa hideout getup.
Yeah, it did.
So I thought it was hilarious when they ended up playing the music at the end, and Brooks takes out the massive bottle of Purell and tells Larry to keep that one because it's got another because he ran out of the small ones. Yeah. It's just so funny.
Yeah,
going back to their germaphobe thing.
I did enjoy that they had the orchestra actually playing the Curb music over the credits instead of just dropping the black. I thought that was a fun touch for the start of the season.
Because it's just, it's iconic music.
Yeah.
Honestly, like if you're interested in television, like, the medium itself, you've seen Curbed. It's a cultural meet.
Yeah.
The music at the end of it. We've seen it. There was a classic video of Eli. It must have been, I forgot what game Eli was watching. And it could have been the Super Bowl in New York, or when the Broncos got murdered. Or was another time, but like Eli, like the slow close-up zoom in, and then the credits, executive producer Larry David, and the music play. Like that's everything. Like it's the best end music to a show. That is, I mean, and like Seinfeld's was great too with the freeze frame and like dun 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 dun, but it's Curb. I don't know, like Curb for me is what they do with the rest of this season. And if they do come out with another one, if it does bang on, it's really kind of hard to say, Mike, that there's been funnier shows than Curb. Like I can count on my hand. I can't even count on my one hand, like how many shows I've seen that are funny. I personally think Seinfeld had so much more volume, and it was a hilarious show, and it was groundbreaking for what it did. But I think the funniest episodes of Curbed made me laugh harder than the funniest episodes of Seinfeld. Maybe it was more culturally relevant to me because I wasn't growing up in the 90s like that. We were 90s babies, but like, we couldn't relate as much. So a lot more relatable things in Curb, I think, personally, that age well, as opposed to Seinfeld. But again, yeah.
Yeah, and there we have it. It's our Curb season premiere coverage. Martino, thanks all the time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I'm going to follow social media, keep on some of the stuff you're up to.
Yeah, you can just follow me on social media at Martino Puccio. Got a new job now, so doing a lot more soccer content, but still doing a lot of sports stuff in general. There's not, again, Mets and Jets just being awful. Celtics, I think, are just first round or second round exit at best, so it's not really anything to boast about. But yeah, if you just want to go follow Proper Football, it's at PF 1:37 p.m. I try every single morning to get people to go on there because I had to start the Twitter from the ground up. But go and check out all that stuff. The site's very like cultural, centric. Just NFTs like Bitcoin, like all that crypto stuff. If people are interested in that, it's not as a brash Barstool, I guess is the best way to put it. But yeah, glad we could talk about some Curb again. These were always a lot of fun, and today was even great. I got to be honest, that was like, I could argue that this episode was maybe better than any of the episodes from last season. It's definitely as good as any Curbed episode I've seen ever.
Yeah, we'll see how the season goes. Maybe we'll pop back on again. Something interesting pops up. We had the Emergency Jets episode last year.
Yeah. It's not much left to do with the Jets stuff. It's just, but you know what reminded me of like the Jets episode, and Larry actually made like such a good point of it on the show with the football going out of the end zone with the Safarian Jenkins, I believe the
Yep.
touchdown was that they were
Yep.
referencing. Perfect example once again that we were talking about with Will is like, how is it possible that Jets players and quarterbacks always are getting hit dirty and it's not the same calls all the time? And we were talking about that Matt Ryan reference, and we're
Yeah.
talking about Zach throwing and leaving the ball out of his hands and getting hit low. And then the very next play, he gets a PCL injury that's keeping him out for almost a month max. You know,
Yep.
it's just the same old thing. It's a full Jet experience once again this whole season. So yeah,
All right, Martino. Thanks, guy. Really appreciate it.
yeah, no problem.